So let's continue building our knowledge of the parabola, and in this case we'll also introduce another function, which is the straight line. So we're given that f of x is equal to 2x squared minus 6x minus 20, and the straight line g of x is equal to minus 2x plus k. The green graph is the f and the pink graph is the g, which is the straight line. So we asked 4 questions to determine the coordinates of a and b, the coordinates of e, the coordinates of d, the turning point, and the value of k. So the first question, we'll be focusing on determining the coordinates of a and b. We can see that a and b are really the x-intercepts of the green graph and also the x-intercept of the pink graph, but we only given the full information, or the full really equation of the graph of f. So hence why we're going to use the graph of f and not the graph of g, because the graph of g has an unknown, which is k, which won't be very helpful for us. So let's go ahead and determine the coordinates of a and b. To determine the coordinates of a and b, we need to calculate the x-intercept, and to calculate the x-intercept we equate y to 0 and we solve for x. So we'll take the graph of f and we equate it to 0, solving for x, so we divide throughout by 2, which would be x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. And then we find the factors of 10, that which we add or subtract, that will give us negative 3. That which we multiply, that will give us negative 10. So the factors of 10 will be 5 and 2, and negative 5 plus 2 gives us negative 3. Negative 5 times 2 gives us negative 10. X is equal to 5, or x is equal to negative 2. So we have to write this in coordinate form. We stated that y is equal to 0, so the y coordinate for both these coordinates will be 0, and it will be negative 2 for that, it will be 5 for that one. But we need to label them, remember, because they asked us for the coordinates of a and the coordinates of b. So a lies on the left hand side of the x-axis, meaning that the x value will be negative. So between the two, this coordinate will be a, and b lies on the right hand side of the x-axis, meaning that x value will be positive, meaning that the other coordinate will be b. So we've calculated the coordinates of a and the coordinates of b. So we can move on to the next question, where we have to calculate the coordinates of e. The coordinates of e, if you look closely, are the y-intercept of the green graph, meaning that the y-intercept of the graph of f. And how do we calculate the y-intercept? Calculate the y-intercept, we're going to use the graph of f, which is 2x squared minus 6x minus 20. But we know something. To calculate the y-intercept, or really determine the y-intercept, we know that c is linked to the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is nothing more than 0 is to the c value with the sign in front of it, which is minus 20. So therefore the e value 0 is to minus 20. So we can move on to the next question, which asks us to calculate or determine the coordinates of d, and d is the turning point of the graph of the green graph. So to determine the turning point, we simply use the hack of saying turning point is minus b over 2a 4ac minus b squared divided by 4a. And we know that a is equal to 2, b is equal to minus 6, and c is equal to minus 20. All these values, I'm reading them off from really the graph of f. So we can substitute all the values to calculate the turning point. It would be minus b for 2a, or a c minus b squared, all divided by 2a. And therefore the turning point is the coordinate of d. Therefore the coordinate of d, 3 over 2 and negative 49 over 2, which makes sense that the x value is positive and d lies on the right hand side of the x-axis, and the y value is negative because d lies on the bottom, or the bottom of the y-axis. So we've calculated a, b, c, and d. Now we can move on to the last question, where we are asked to determine the value of k. The value of k is found in the straight line of g of x. So g of x is y is equal to negative 2 x plus k. But we know something. We know that this graph passes, remember, point A, the coordinate of A. And we know the coordinate of A, negative 2 is to 0. So what we can simply do is to just substitute the x value with this x, substitute the y value with this y. Then we can calculate our k value. Let's quickly do that. So y over 0 is equal to negative 2, a is negative 2, and x is negative 2. So we'll have 0 is equals to negative 2 times negative 2 is 4 plus k. If you make k subject to the formula, you see that k is equals to negative 4. So we've calculated what the coordinate of A is, what the coordinate of B is, calculated what the coordinates of E is, and calculated the turning point D, and we've determined what the value of k is.